1.
Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to another rousing rendition of the ones that are left of this iteration of a show called Libservative, intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. Bell the Bodysnatcher on the ones and twos. He, as always, is Corey Walsh.
He's Dan Griffin.
I feel like I made it sound like we're just ending. We're quitting the show. We're not quitting the show.
We're not quitting the show.
We just making some changes around here, like getting rid of Bell.
I never quit.
Like getting rid of Bell and bringing in a monkey to take his place. That should be a fun show. And apparently a bird as well.
There's going to be a bird.
Evolution. You know?
Reverse evolution. No, wait. He just dissed himself. Never mind. He's right. He was
No,
right
he said you're going to replace Bell with a monkey.
You were supposed to get that right off rip.
I didn't. It's the end of the year. I'm a little hazy.
Who's evolving?
The monkeys or the birds? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think what is it? I think the chimpanzees right now are in some of them are reaching Stone Age, or is it orangutans or something? But birds can talk. So like I think birds, when it comes to the communicate, well, I don't know if birds can understand what people are
Hey,
thinking.
give it another couple weeks. Those chimps will be able to run for Congress. We'll be all set. Everything will be all
probably
fixed.
better off.
Might be our predictions for 2024. We have an end of the year show for everyone on this Wednesday, December 27th, our final show of the year. We got to go over our predictions from last year, whether or not they came to fruition. We're gonna talk about some of the more overcovered and undercovered stories of 2023, and we're gonna give you some predictions for 2024 and overall just have a good time. I'm gonna steadily get drunker as the show goes on.
Just have a
Ooh, I already
good
got the
time.
hiccups.
Yeah, is everyone here who's been chronologically following my little life story of my parents showing up a few weeks back, and then tonight's the last night they'll be here. It's a little bittersweet.
Speaking of evolution,
in the least sexual way I could say it. Hate to see him go, but love to watch him leave.
yeah, just keep your eyes up.
Okay, Mom.
It's gonna be really weird. You're really weird. You
Hey, Dan.
you should blast some Creedence Clearwater Revival as they like walk down the driveway.
Hey, Dad, guess what?
Yeah.
The Absurd Podcast is found on all social.
Sweet.
Oh, fuck. This is a great start. The Absurd Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativPod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast. Reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today. Dan, I'm gonna go take 2 seconds to go grab some nicotine gum. And you just make sure that dead space doesn't get any longer than 2 seconds?
I'm just
3
gonna
seconds?
just gonna play the Benny Hill theme the entire
I'm
time
okay
you're
with
gone.
it. I'm all right with it. I'll be right back. I don't want to keep
Well-
hitting the pen and coughing.
I hear
All
you.
right.
I hear you. I hear you too
Now
much.
you're
is
making
the
a
problem.
thing of it. Yeah, I know. So does everyone else. All the listeners who are paying top dollar to listen to this.
Oh, I guess we can start with what we learned this week. I'll start, and then if Corey's not back on time, Bell, you can go. I learned that for the first time in maybe 5 or 6. Maybe longer. I don't know. The time frame doesn't quite sit right in my head, but I've learned that the Facebook friend request means something again. I know you know what I'm talking about. I know Corey would know what I'm talking about when he finally makes his way back to his computer, because there was that time where you would literally just like meet somebody at a party, or like somebody that you know you're never going to see again. And you would leave that place and you would receive a Facebook friend request from that person. Now, nobody sends out Facebook friend requests anymore after they meet somebody for the first time. So I feel like now when you get one or you send one, it actually means something for the first time, maybe in the history of Facebook. That's what I learned.
The rise and fall of Facebook invites.
Facebook invites to like events.
No, just like friend requests.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like it actually means something again.
Well, I only heard the very end of it, so
it means something again because you would go somewhere and you would get or receive friend requests from every single person that you met at this party of people you would never ever talk to again, and everybody would accept them all the time. That doesn't happen anymore. So now when you get one or you send one, it actually is. It's actually meaningful. They mean something again.
It's either a bot or it's someone like, oh. But also at the same time, Facebook is slowly dying.
I don't think it is.
You don't think Facebook's dying?
Well, the boomers are keeping it alive, so that's number one. But also,
okay, so then through like a weird relationship, yes, Facebook is dying.
No, and then all like millennials are keeping it alive too, because like 90% of the reason we even started it in the first place was just to just have a connection to people that you would have no other way to have a connection with after you left whatever situation, whether it be college or school or summer camp,
bar night,
yeah, that kind of stalking people.
I always use Facebook as a way. So way back in the day, before I met my wife, I always used Facebook as a means of a way to connect with chicks because it seemed way less like, I don't want to use the word. It seemed way less intrusive to ask a homegirl for her Facebook than it was her number. Like, hey, you on Facebook? Because everyone's yeah, I'd love more people to see the photos of me that I post all the time.
You're going into the way back machine now, Corey.
Well, it's not MySpace.
Oh, wow.
None of the young crowd uses Facebook anymore anyways.
No, they're on Instagram.
Everybody's on Instagram and all the new stuff anyways.
It'll make a comeback.
I think
at some point it's going to make a comeback.
Yeah, and I'm still hoping MySpace makes a comeback because
2024 prediction.
Yeah, that was
both are in the running for the top 8.
Here's what you have to understand though. MySpace was a terrible business model. It was always a terrible business model. It had some neat tools. It had some neat stuff. Like the fact that you could like completely, essentially without knowing how to code, customize your entire page. Like it had some like neat things, but it was always a shitty business model. Facebook will come back around again when first of all, when the boomers are dead. So like 6 years from now.
When the metaverse goes into
it'll come back around. It'll come back around when all the boomers are dead and all of like Gen Z's parents are like have moved on to like the next thing that they think is cool. These things always come back around. It'll come back around.
Well, MySpace did.
Because it was a bad business model. It died. Facebook's actually a good business model.
Fucking talk down on Tom like that. He was your first friend on Facebook or on MySpace.
We actually have actual audio from Tom to me, which I don't understand how we got this, but it's pretty fantastic to live in the world that we live in. Tell us how you feel, Tom.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, see,
he
was a dick then. He's a dick today. He was always a dick. I didn't want to be his friend, and he made me be his friend.
You know what Tom said to me?
Don't get bogged down by all the haters out there.
He said, "Don't get bogged down by all the haters out there."
You're still buddies. You're still buddies with him.
Yeah, he's still number 1 in my top 8. And you're quickly working your way down to the bottom number 8 or off the top 8. The way you're talking trash about Tommy's.
That was such a weird thing in high school. Like that was like because you and I were in high school in the early to mid 2000s, right? So like that was like the biggest slight you could give somebody when they pissed you off is like take them out of your top whatever on MySpace, like move them down a little bit.
Yeah.
Or like people that were dating would get really fucking pissed off if if your girlfriend like didn't have you as like her number one, or like her. It's just so stupid and petty. You're right. I actually kind of miss it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a blast. Me and Andy, it was so funny, like, our photographer, because we were friends for so long. We would always, and it was like this weird little hype thing in school because he was always a photographer. So we would always like think of some crazy fucking wonky photo to make our photo, like our profile picture for the week. And me and Andy would go out and take some silly photo where they were like similar but a little bit different. And then that was our profile pic for the week. And everyone's like, "Oh, what's your guys' profile pic going to be this week?" You're like, "I don't know. You're going to have to wait and see."
I think back on it, it was like the dumbest, nerdiest, coolest fucking thing.
It was. And then I had HTML coding where I could have like a top 16 or a top 20.
Right.
And
Yeah.
no one
Did. Other people did. Trust me.
I mean, eventually, once the code got leaked.
But it was a terrible business model, which is why it ultimately died. There was no room for growth, no room for advertising. It wasn't very good in that way, which is probably what made it more fun back in the day.
Yeah, it was more organic.
You really wanted to piss somebody off, just take them out of your top 6 or 8 or 16.
Yeah, it was always fun being 15-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Some hot girl who also looks 15 edgy, and it's like, oh, could this be a 15-year-old girl from California, or is this a grown man in Minnesota? I don't know. Let's find out.
You can usually tell by the accent.
Not when it's in text.
Yeah, you missed a joke.
Our
inability to grasp each other's dumb jokes boggles my mind.
Well, today's worse than ever.
We're both horribly guilty of it. Anyway, Corey, what did you learn in school this week?
Oh man,
your final of 2023. This is your final exam.
Okay, so this week
and you failed.
No. This week, I learned that gift cards are a scam, as 45 billion of the $171 billion a year typically go unspent, and that cash is easier and cheaper.
Dude, that is such a great point before you get to your hot take about this, because like I had a similar thought not that long ago where doesn't like a certain percentage of the sale go to like whatever credit card company puts it on, or like I don't know how that works, but like somebody's just essentially making money on transferring cash.
Well, you're spending like $3 or $4 on the card alone.
Well, you have to pay an activation fee, and you have to pay fees up front when you buy the card. That's where they're making their money. They don't give a shit if you spend your money or not.
Well, they're not just making their money on that. They're also making their money on the fact that like you're giving this company money up front in hopes that someone is going to turn around and spend it. But a lot of times people don't. And it gets nickel and dimed out to where it's like there's $3 here, $2 here on a card. Or if someone gets a card for $100, they go and they spend it on a $90 item. Right. And then the card just sits there.
So
yeah, if you think about it,
they all have expiration dates.
So the better gift that buy them.
Right. Yeah. And there's also a lot of scam artists that use them to steal your money. That's always a fun one. Hey, I need money. Send me $500,000 in gift cards.
It's a terrible business model and altogether, because this is also
it's a brilliant business model. It's just what you just said. It's an absolute scam because it's literally just transferring cash.
Well, it's
that can only
kind
be
of
spent
on both
in a certain
ends.
place.
Because in 2009, I think it was, these companies, like, it becomes a liability, right? As soon as that $50 is given to them, they can't just spend it willy-nilly, because they might have to give out $50 in merchandise. They might only have to give out $40, but they have to hold like that money that's just sitting out in the ether during the whole process. It has to be counted as a liability. Like, for example, last year or in 2019, Walmart had to account for $1.9 billion in gift card liability. Because they're like,
right, so,
$1.9 billion floating around.
But the assets are still theirs because the cash has been paid. I got you. That's what you're saying. The assets are still theirs, though.
Amazon was $2.68 billion. Starbucks was $1.6 billion. Target was $727 million. So you want to take down the corporations? What you do is you go and spend billions of dollars in gift cards, and then sit on them for 3 years, and then right before they expire, you go and spend it all at once. And call their bluff.
But isn't that just another microcosm of our horrible, disgusting fractional banking system that we have in general? It's no different than what a bank does. It's no different at all than what a bank does.
They learned from the best, Dan.
Yes, they did. Anyway, you're right. That's a great take. The gift cards are a fucking scam.
They fucking are, guys. If you're listening to this podcast and you're gonna give someone a gift, I honestly believe that
Just give them
person,
cash.
Yeah, I feel like that person isn't going to be like, oh well, they should have got a gift card.
Well, because what people always say is like, well, if you give them cash, there's no, there's no thought behind the gift or whatever. But it's like you could literally just go to, like, say you were going to get somebody a Starbucks gift card, right? You could literally just be like, well, I know you really like Starbucks. Here's $50 to spend at Starbucks, because that's all to spend at Starbucks, because that's all you're doing by getting them a Starbucks gift card.
Exactly. Like, oh, here's 50. Like, I almost got you a $50 Starbucks gift card, but instead,
Then I realized it's a scam.
Cash, because you could also buy Starbucks and then maybe buy a couple shooters to put in your Starbucks.
The cash is like, it's so funny because like around the holidays, cash is looked at as like this like thoughtless gift, but nobody's ever upset to receive it.
Absolutely.
You ever met anybody who was pissed about receiving cash for a gift for Christmas or their birthday?
No.
I mean, it's one thing if it's like your wife, right, or your kids, right? Then there's a little more thought that has to go into that gift. But if it's just like a cousin or whatever, I don't, or like an aunt or an uncle or whatever. Like, I was never upset when my aunts and my uncles and my grandparents gave me cash as a gift.
With a card that said, "Hey, glad to see you made it another year. Good luck here on the next one."
Lottery ticket.
Here's $100.
Right. I think besides your wife, you're good, because even like my kids, I mean, I walk up, I'm like, my oldest, I'm like, here's some money.
I think it's also a little awkward to. That's a good point, because, yeah, I don't think even your own kids would be upset about receiving cash, but it's kind of it's a little awkward. It's a little awkward to give your parents cash too. I think that one's a little weird.
I don't know.
That one's kind of awkward.
If you're loaded, I think just like, take it. Then like, all
Right.
right.
Talking about the amount of money that makes it okay. So what is the amount of money that makes it okay? Does it have to be at least 3 digits?
To give to whom? Your parents?
Yeah.
No, it's got to be more.
More than 3 digits?
Yeah.
Thousands?
Like if you win, 10,000 in the lottery and you're not giving them.
That's different. We're talking about just Christmas.
For Christmas.
I love you this many dollars worth. Here's $150.
If you have an average salary,
Go
you're not
fuck
giving your parents
yourself.
cash. But I mean, like,
as they put the money in their wallet.
Sexual. Dad.
I don't think they'd be mad about, like, if you were like, I don't know what to give you. Here's $100. Here's $250. They'd be like, dope.
That's 3 digits.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. I don't know, dude. It's situational. It's definitely.
What did you learn in school this week, Bell?
Do you guys know who Herbert Cole is?
I know who. No.
I know who Nat King Cole is.
Okay, Herbert Cole. He
was he related?
Him, his brother, and his dad founded Kohl's. All right. All right. So this guy just died, and I was like, "Well, who is this guy? Why is he in the news?" Apparently, dude, this guy was a senator in Wisconsin from like 1985.
Oh, I knew that. That's the fucking University of Wisconsin's basketball stadium's named after him. It's called the Cole Center. Okay, dude, I know what you're talking about.
He owned the Milwaukee Bucks. He bought them in 1985 for $18 million. In 2014, he sold them for $550 million. Bro,
Giannis Antetokounmpo. I have his jersey upstairs.
I was gonna say, apparently this guy, there was no real scandals involving this guy. So
speaking of Wisconsin, I got some Miller Lights here,
and he was like a super philanthropist. Good
is
dude.
Is that where Miller Lite comes from?
Yeah.
I didn't know PBR came from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I know Old Milwaukee did. No, I knew PBR did. Yeah.
That 70s show, dude.
You shit yourself? I heard that.
I know. I went to hit the mute and it didn't. Mute.
Don't get bogged down by all the haters out there.
Good God.
Corey just unloaded live on the show. I like it.
What can I say?
It's the last show of the year. Can't hold anything back.
Right.
Yeah, it's new year, new me. I'm letting it all out. It's my airing of grievances.
It's letting out the demons.
I got demons inside of me, brother.
Does that mean you're pro-life now?
He's leaving
I
it
have
all in
demons inside of me?
2023.
You're
I have
letting all the demons
I
out.
have that crotch goblin running around on the floor out there.
So, Bell, is what you learned this week in school essentially that like the founder of Kohl's was like a good dude?
Yeah. Yeah, that's literally it. The guy gave away tons of money.
It's an anomaly for like someone who's loaded.
Dude, yeah, but he was a money machine. And he was, I mean, he was a senator and all that. And they elected him for a long time, over 2 decades. So, I don't know. Dude was just a good dude. Rest in peace. He just died.
I honestly don't. I don't know enough. I don't know enough about the Cole family to like check your facts. So our listeners might do that. There's probably some shit about him that somebody's going to pull up. Like
there might be if they dig.
He finger banged an elephant when he was in Thailand. Something. It's always something weird. Rich people do weird shit.
I mean, he might have had a few policies that were like, but he was. He's pro-choice. He's a Democrat.
Don't forget to spend that Kohl's cash when you get it.
Yeah, don't let that credit card sit by that gift card sit by the wayside. Spend it every day.
If you don't, Herbert Cole will haunt you in your sleep.
He's right,
dude. Kohl's cash was just a thing to get wine moms to spend more money because it's like I can save this amount of money. I have to go back to Kohl's in the next 2 weeks. It's pretty brilliant.
What was that whole thing that people have been talking about recently, like girl math?
Oh yeah, if I save money. If I don't buy something on sale, I lost money.
Yeah, or they break it down where it's like, and I'm sure that's not just girls that do this. Like it's the whole meme is girl math, but like the guy math too. It's where it's like, well, like let me figure this out. Like I don't need this $70 video game, but if I buy it, $70, that might be one night. Possibly 2 nights at dive bars going out, and that would end up equaling about $70. But if I buy this game and I play it for the next 3 months at 3 or 4 hours at a time, then I'm actually making money on it than I would be if I was just going out to the bar, kind of thing.
Or just like don't go to the bar as often
and don't buy the game. Yeah, like but like you understand, like it's the cognitive. It's basically making fun of the cognitive dissonance of spending money you shouldn't.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get into this.
Is capitalism fair? Find out next week on the Absurdity Podcast.
Yeah, it's the fairest system that we have. Although there are a lot of kids on college campuses that would still somehow disagree with that. Let's get into let's do this first. Let's do the most overreported and underreported stories of 2023. Corey, I don't know if you pulled any of these. However, I have a few, and we can just go over mine if you don't have any in front of you.
I have 10 of them.
Holy shit. Okay, I'll start. Let's do most overcovered, because I feel like we're gonna have a little bit more fun with the most undercovered. I only have a couple. Well, I have more, but I just kind of wrote them down in generalities. I'm gonna start with saying anything climate change, remarkably overcovered in 2023. I mean, it's probably been overcovered for like basically since Al Gore put that stupid fucking movie out. Anything climate change has probably been overcovered, but it's like these stories that like give you these what are supposed to be examples of climate change in action, and it's just like a hurricane hit Mexico for the first time in 80 years, or like anything that was like a weather event, just like a weather event. Because if you are not a moron, you realize that random weather events do not equal climate change. Those are not the things that matter. And we also get to see a lot more of Greta Thunberg's face, and she's getting to the age now where I feel that I can probably make fun of her more. Is she an adult yet? Do we know? She's 18, right? I can like actually make fun of her and not get shit on for making fun of a kid.
I think so.
I think
it's allowed.
I felt bad for, actually, that's not true. I was gonna say I felt bad for her at first. I still kind of feel bad for her because like she's clearly just been used by people in the climate change lobby as like this like face, like this little girl, this how dare you. And so I do kind of feel bad for her, but it's getting to the point now where it's like she's becoming an adult and she should realize that the shit that she's peddling is mostly bullshit. So anything climate change, most overcovered stories of 2023.
So that's interesting you say that because like I would kind of agree, but I would say that what was overreported was like the sensationalized shit, and then the
that's all it is.
The underreported stuff is everything to go along with it, right? Like CO2 in the air. Oh, we're putting all these fossil fuels in the air. But what's underreported is like all the science and the technology that is all of these major breakthroughs that are happening that fix the system that we have now versus everything being concentrated on completely flipping the system over.
Well,
to where
great.
like right now, like there's a bunch of news reports coming out about how carbon capture out of exhaust vents and these different plants and stuff can be captured. Like they're coming out with technology that can do this, that could be cost efficient. Things like hydrogen fuel cells that are becoming more and more cost efficient. Desalination of water for different places is becoming more cost efficient. Nuclear fission, not nuclear fusion, but nuclear fission of forcing atoms together to create energy. Like I think it was this year. We talked about it on the show. I think it was like right around this time last year. It might have been right in like January when like the CERN system and stuff was able to produce more energy with their system than the energy that they put in. There's a lot of positives regarding all of this, but it's all focused on just the two things, wind and sun, and everything is dying. When there's always been cycles.
So if I could piggyback on like the underreported as it pertains to climate change, there are more and more scientists. I forgot what their name is. Maybe Bell can find it for us. But scientists, the people that study the ice core samples, I've been seeing more and more testimony from these guys that are suggesting that what we're getting from these ice core samples has been completely misrepresented, which is that what they're starting to find is that the CO2 levels are going up at certain areas throughout history, but they're also finding that they're coming 500 to 800 years after the temperature rose,
right?
Which is fucking interesting, right? If anything, it kind of suggests that the CO2 levels rise after the temperature goes up.
Which is interesting because like it's funny you mentioned the poles because that's actually on my list of things I've learned, and that like the poles may move way more than initially thought, and how we still don't know shit about our own Earth, and that like the poles, like we're talking like, was it like hundreds of miles? The pole within like 3 years.
Well, who are the guys that study the core samples?
I'm reading it right now. I just want you to know that I threw the article in the private chat.
Oh, okay. He's reading it. Climate myths. Ice cores show CO2 increases lagging behind temperature rises.
So do you think
the link global warming?
But like the whole climate change argument and especially all of the massive pushback against it, I still think that we're going to see a net gain like in our environment from this, because what it ultimately is it's a push to be more like environmentally like conscious.
I know what you're going to say. And I have that
it's
has always
pushing
been
technology faster than it would be if the sensationalized news articles about it weren't happening, to where the people that are thinking that they're just not bellwethers, but that they're sensationalizing the issue, have to constantly improve their technology and improve their studies to combat it. And whether or not two people are trying to fuck the same coconut from either end, if you got more people trying to fuck the same coconut, eventually they're both to be able to stick their tips in.
That coconut's gonna be a fucking oily mess.
Yeah.
By the time all these people get done fucking it. But no, I mean I've always been an advocate of like, can we stop sensationalizing that like the planet is gonna end in 50 years if we don't do something about the CO2 levels and maybe start focusing on clean water, clean air, like those.
Right.
And if you focus on clean air, right, aren't you ultimately going to pull more CO2 out of the atmosphere just like as part of it? Is that just going to be part of it if you were to do it that way?
Absolutely, you're right. And what was I going to say I lost my train of thought there. Well,
that's all right. It doesn't
what else
matter.
you got for underreported?
Bell's saying that the study he found is from 2007, I think. Is that what I'm reading here, Bell? You can hop in here.
Yeah, come on in, bud.
Yeah, but it's all the same.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff saying that they're just like, yeah, these dudes are right. But I'm trying to find the name of the scientists. I have the name of the scientific journalists who write these articles. But
you don't. You're talking about like what's the name of the scientist that studies ice core samples? Is it just climatologists? Because I don't know.
No, these ones in particular.
Oh, gotcha.
The ones that have these core samples and have that come to these conclusions. There's articles from 2022 that say the same thing.
Yeah, but it's funny because like the people that are out there that want to
just basically make this by all the haters.
No, that basically want to make the same points that these two scientists are making, and the point that I just made, they over sensationalized it in the other direction by like just screaming the word hoax all over the place, and like you know what that word does to people? It fucking makes them crazy. Like, it makes them nuts. Like if you accuse somebody of perpetuating a hoax, even if that's the case, like I don't necessarily, I think it's probably more nuanced than that. But like even if that is the case, that like the WEF or whoever is out there like perpetuating some climate change hoax, we know what that word does. It doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help the discourse, and it doesn't help.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And like my thing ultimately is like I would like to see cleaner water, cleaner air, better care of the environment, and stuff like that. And what frustrates me is all of the sensationalized media around it is the doom and gloom that you're talking about. Where like it ultimately just comes down to this trivial word of hoax, where they're either climate change is a hoax or climate change denialism is a hoax. When on the outskirts of all of this sensationalized media that we're seeing in the news and them showing photos of just penguins sitting on small glaciers and stuff like that, there are a million things that are happening that are pushing us towards the trend of being more environmentally conscious. And right. I think that is the underreported part. Everyone in their vacuums of like news sources, it's either, climate change is a hoax or the world's going to burn down tomorrow. When there are a lot of people who are trying to just sustain it and make it work and make it happen. And if you just take a breath and stop following those little vacuums that you're in those little silos, that we are approaching a more equilibrium when it comes to being environmentally friendly and also being able to afford all of our cheap consumerist things.
And we continue to get the way we receive our energy. Like forget the infrastructure in the United States because it's atrocious, but the actual fuels that we use to receive our electricity
are more and more efficient almost every day.
Cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner throughout history. That's going to continue to be the case. I mean, even the gasoline that we burn in our cars, Corey, like that's supposed to be the thing that's going to end the planet, is so much cleaner today. Like what comes out of our exhausts on our cars today is so much cleaner than it was 20, definitely 30 and 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Just continues to get better.
And there was a point on the world where everyone was just burning wood, wood and whale blubber. And then there was scares on both of those and realizing that those were also hurting the environment.
And then there was
we switched to coal and
then there was
you're
oil.
Seeing on the grand
and now there's natural gas, which is even cleaner than that. Yeah.
You're seeing us constantly trending towards the less dirty stuff. And that like we just
and why do we do it? Because it becomes cheaper, and also it's just like nobody wants fucking smog. Like even the most ardent the most ardent conservative that thinks that climate change is a complete hoax doesn't want to live in a fucking smog-filled city.
Doesn't want to live in smog. It doesn't want the rivers to catch on fire like they did in Cleveland in the 70s.
Right. So instead of
no one wants green ooze coming out of the highway.
Instead of verbally punching people because they just don't think the exact same way you do, understand that we all want the same things. We all want clean water. We all want clean air. We all, if the planet is warming by our, by the things that we do, we don't want to do that. We all know this, but it's the way that it's pushed and the way that you're told you're a bad person if you don't believe this exact thing.
I also think there's a weird like human exceptionalism that like we just think we're the most important thing on earth, that we are the sole proprietors of the climate changing.
Oh yeah, how arrogant, right? How absolutely arrogant. I mean, it's so. Have you seen some of these videos of these people going around to like college campuses and being like, "Hey, what percentage of the atmosphere is CO2?" Like these people that are supposedly climate change activists. Because
like
I don't remember,
isn't it?
It's not even close to that.
Okay, because I know most of our atmosphere is actually nitrogen.
It's 0.4%, I believe, is the number that I saw. It's 0.4%, and then how much of that 0.4% is? I could be wrong, but it's close to that because I don't have it in front of me.
Hey, Bell, look up how much of the atmosphere is CO2.
Maybe Bell can fight it for us. And then of that 0.4%, humans create like 0.3% of that 0.4%. The rest of it comes from eruptions,
volcano eruptions, and wildfires and solar flares. And
the fact that we think,
I don't know if we actually get CO2 from solar flares. That might have just been bullshit. I was propagandizing.
I was right. Bell says I was right. It's 0.4% of the atmosphere is CO2. And then humans create
0.04. 0.04.
Yep, 0.04. And humans create an astronomically small percentage of that 0.4%. Anyway, we can argue about climate change till we're blue in the face, but I got another one.
No one's arguing.
For over covered stories of 2023, anything pointing out how dangerous Vladimir Putin is? It's just completely, utterly, unbelievably over reported story that has essentially gone away because now we have a new war to worry about. It's a new way for Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and the military industrial complex to make money. So we don't actually care how quote unquote dangerous Vladimir Putin is as we approach 2024. But that might have been the most over-reported thing that I saw all of 2023. And I can already hear it. I must be a Putin apologist because I don't think he's dangerous. I don't think he's dangerous. I'm sorry. I don't think
he's no more dangerous than any other country that has nuclear weapons. I'll put it like that.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Corey. And he's certainly no more dangerous than this crackerjack crew we got in DC, as far as the globe is concerned. So,
or President Xi, or India, who also has nuclear weapons, who's like always in skirmishes with China. Or North Korea, who has nuclear weapons, or Iran, who let's be honest, they probably have some, like, yeah.
But don't you love that though? Don't you love how like Putin was on the verge of like invading Poland like 8 months ago, and now it's just all right, we're just gonna end the war now because we have a new war that we can make money off of down here. In the Middle East. And we all know that when it comes to war, the Middle East, that's the money maker, kids. Don't ever
wish
forget
you would have
it.
invaded Poland. This would be over.
It would have ended a year ago if he actually tried to invade Poland. Yeah, 100%.
They've been giving the Ukraine they gave them so many jets and everything. They're like, listen, if we can't fuck them up, we're gonna let you fuck them up.
The only thing that hasn't let Poland invade is NATO.
Yep, they've been chomping at the bit for 50, 60, 70 years to go in there and smack them Russians around.
Well, I don't know if it was that long, but it was as soon as because Poland was a part of the Soviet Union until it collapsed in the 90s.
They were called Prussians. Those were Prussian people.
But they wanted a piece of that ass all that time too. Yeah,
they sure did. They do still.
Well, I mean, we all probably would have been blown up. Like that's the thing is like, what makes you think? What I was always saying was like, what makes you think Vladimir Putin wants nuclear war any more than the United States does, or anybody else around the globe. Nobody wanted it. Like everybody was like, well, I don't know, mutually assured destruction. That might not be a thing we can count on anymore. And it's like, no, I think in a lot of ways it kind of is. Like we all know that's still
such
thing.
an ominous saying, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like honestly, that is probably like almost the best nuclear policy you could have. Like,
and like I guess the way I'll
end, it's mutually assured.
I guess the way I would end this point is that, like, do I think Vladimir Putin's a piece of shit? Of course I do. Do I think he's any more of a piece of shit than any bureaucrat that we have in DC or the UK or Canada or Israel or anywhere else that is dominating the globe, or any of the fucking dickheads at the World Economic Forum or Bill Gates? No, I don't think he's any worse than any of those fucking people. And so the only thing that makes him a little bit worse is that if somebody's going to blow me up, it's going to be him. But you know what? That's not enough for me. Sorry.
Right.
Any story reporting how dangerous Vladimir Putin was is my second most overcovered story of 2023. Corey, why don't you give us a couple?
Let me check. I don't know if I wrote any. I have a bunch of underreported stuff.
You don't have any overreported? We can move on.
Let me think. Who do we have? We had George Santos, who's reported on a lot.
Just Trump. Oh, wait, he was actually as far as Trump goes, he was actually kind of underreported this year. He did a better job of actually staying out of the media than he ever has, essentially, since 2016, I think, this year.
Yeah, Israel kind of took everything in a vacuum in my mind right now as I'm thinking of the stuff that would have been overreported.
Overreported might, as far as regards to Israel, might be how bad pro-Palestinian protesters actually are. They're morons, most of them. Most of the pro-Palestinian protesters, especially the ones on college campuses, are morons.
The whole either side-ism of the culture wars, that was definitely something overreported because it just means that we had nothing better to do.
Yeah. What do you got for underreported? Why don't you start us off there for most underreported stories of 2023?
So I was cruising around on the interwebs of things to try to find some stuff. And speaking of climate change, one thing that was underreported this year is the fossil fuel industry is subsidized at a rate of $11 million per minute.
$11 million per minute.
Yeah, globally, the fossil fuel industry receives subsidies of $11 million per minute, primarily from a lack of liability for the externalized health costs of deadly air pollution, damages caused by extreme weather events, and costs from traffic collisions and congestion. And 2/3 of those subsidies come from just 5 countries: the U.S., Russia, India, China, and Japan. Apparently, wage theft. U.S. businesses suffer few consequences for minimum wage violations, which is something that I think is pretty interesting.
But how much of that has to do with the fact that they're paying illegal immigrants cash because nobody wants to do the job?
I don't know, but in 2017, the FBI reported the cost of street crime at about $13.8 billion. The same year that the Economic Policy Institute released a study saying that one form of wage theft, minimum wage violations, cost U.S. workers even more, estimated at $15 billion annually, impacting an estimated 17% of low-wage workers.
Well, so here's my confusion there. Like, how does somebody not know what minimum wage is in both federally and in their state?
Well, it's not necessarily that. It's just probably just paying people cash under the table.
Okay, fair enough. But then that money's also not taxed. So no wonder the FBI is sitting there investigating, right? So is it really wage theft?
In January 2019, this is the EPA withheld reports on dangerous chemicals. In January 2019, the Environmental Protection Agency stopped releasing legally required disclosures about chemicals that present a substantial risk of injury to health and the environment. They had previously been posting in a searchable public database called ChemView. In November of 2021, as part of the Intercept's EPA Exposed investigative series, Sharon Lerner reported the EPA had received at least 1,240 substantial risk reports since January 2019, but only one was publicly available. The suppressed reports documented the risk of chemicals, serious harms, including air corrosion, damage to the brain and nervous system, and chronic toxicity to honeybees and cancer in both people and animals. Number 4, at least 128 members of Congress invested in the fossil fuel industry. I don't even need to read it; just the headline's good enough.
Then maybe that's why that one's so underreported, because it's just so not surprising.
Right. Dark money interference in U.S. politics undermines democracy. The same group of conservative dark money organizations that opposed Biden's Supreme Court nomination, Judicial Crisis Network, JCN, the 85 Fund and their affiliated groups, also funded entities that played a role in the January 6th insurrection. Oh, it's about that, but
it's an insurrection.
Yeah, it's feeding into the insurrection thing, but basically, let's just keep it on the headline, because I think that's important. There's so much goddamn dark money that is being spent, because what people will do is they'll just make fake organizations and then dump the money into the organization, not give it to a campaign candidate themselves, but what they'll do is they'll dump millions of dollars into a corporation, which would be like a nonprofit half the time, who would in turn and make a shit ton of advertisements and pamphlets and things they send out as working for one side or the other, to just dog the other side about how shitty they are or how good the other person is. And it's money that's circumventing the limits on campaign contributions.
So if I could compare that to something, it's kind of like the political version of what Purdue Pharma did with OxyContin, where they would basically start these the American Pain Association, or they would start all these little groups that would say, hey, OxyContin is less addictive as an opioid than any of the other opioids. It's great. And then they would be like, hey, what's your pain tolerance on the little chart? And doctors would just be prescribing it all over the place. It's so they basically took the playbook from Purdue Pharma.
Pretty much. So let's say you're running for president, Dan. As an individual, I think I can only give you $1,500, either $1,500 or $2,500, as a personal contribution to your campaign.
You don't have that much money.
That's the cap. But I could give 10 times that amount to an organization that I create myself, and it could be Fathers Against the Two-Party System. What would FATS? I give $25,000 to FATS, and then they use that money to create ads to just disparage your campaign adversary.
Yeah, super PACs. That's what a super PAC is.
It's just circumventing the system that not everyone is able to do. It's just you have to have these connections and the know-how to make these groups that you could just funnel millions of dollars towards campaigns.
God bless Citizens United.
Corporate consolidation is causing record inflation in food prices. Corporation consolidation is the main driver of record inflation in food prices, as Huff and Roth write in Project Censored State of the Free Press 2023. The establishment press has covered the current wave of inflation exhaustively, but only rarely discuss the market power of giant firms as a possible cause, and then usually only to reject it, as they did when the Biden administration cited meat industry consolidation as a cause of price increases in September 2021.
I was going to say, are you doing the Robert Reich thing? Are you doing the corporations, greedy corporations? Corporate greed is responsible for inflation?
So I'm not going to sensationalize it and say they're the sole proprietor of the inflation, but they definitely play their hand in it. But no one really talked about it as much, because but this isn't about greedy corporations necessarily. It's about the consolidation of the different food industries,
which comes through capture of the federal government, which puts in protectionist policies, which protect these corporations, which allows them to merge. Yeah. Crony capitalism, essentially.
Oh, and then
Cronyism.
We forgot
I shouldn't say crony capitalism.
One thing that wasn't really talked about much is the idea that the CIA discussed plans to kidnap or kill Julian Assange.
Oh, yeah. We were going to talk about that. See, even we underreported it.
That's all I really got right now.
The only other addition I had to stories that were underreported for 2023 was like how many places, God, I can't speak. Did you see the likely truth behind the Nord Stream pipeline?
Oh, that one is a good one.
Where was that ever reported?
And then underreported just all of the mass surveillance that's succumbing due to COVID and all the policies and everything put in place, and FISA and all these different things. Like, we're literally watching our privacy rights be scooped away, and no one's really talking about it.
Well, yeah, they don't want you talking about it.
Which is funny.
I don't know who they are, Corey, but they don't want you talking about it.
Because if you like, I have my 2023 predictions written down. And one of my 2023 predictions was more COVID-era policies used to spy on U.S. citizens.
I really hope you're wrong about that one.
Yeah, but we're not. We know we're not.
We got to get into our review of our 2023 predictions. I will go ahead and start because I nailed mine. My big one for 2023 was that we would see the beginning of the end of wokeness. I don't like using that word anymore. It's actually kind of antiquated, and it's become antiquated in throughout 2023.
It became antiquated so fast.
Yeah, I know, and which is great. It should be antiquated. It's a stupid fucking word. It's divisive. It doesn't mean anything anyway. But I think everybody knows what I mean when I say that I predicted at the end of 2022 that during 2023 we would see the beginning of the end of wokeness. I think we've definitely seen that, and I've got so many things to point that out. The first being something that just happened last week or the week before? I can't remember. All my days are running together around the holidays, but with all these Ivy League presidents stepping down for not denouncing fucking genocide, Corey, not just denouncing genocide in front of Congress. Feel however you want to feel about Israel, Gaza. Okay, feel however you want to feel. But when you're asked a question whether or not calling for genocide of Jews, and you are a fucking university president, and you can't say that that's not harassment.
The word to say that that's harassment without like.
And you go like, it depends. It might not violate our harassment policy if it's done in the right context. And it's like, ma'am, calling for the genocide of Jews is not harassment.
Right, because it's what frustrates me about that the most is like, if they would have stuck with that policy, like when they like expose themselves and look like pieces of shit by saying, well, when it's the Jews, it's okay. It's about the context.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, when all of this cockamamie shit on these campuses started, if these presidents then would have stood up and went, well, it depends on the context and then whether or not it's actionable and things like that, they wouldn't be facing the problems they're fucking facing today.
No, they're afraid of the mob. They're afraid of the mob. And like, they're
afraid of the mob because they know that each one of those people in the mob is giving them $250,000.
When you see,
it's not about any sort of virtue signaling. It's about them losing out on their revenue stream.
I think when you see the heads of these institutions crumbling under a basic question with a very basic answer and only really one right answer, from a moral perspective, I don't see how you could possibly say that that's not the beginning of the end of wokeness, because their ideology is crumbling before their feet.
And well, yeah, because it's because the ideology was based on grifting. They stuck with all of the students.
That's not even it. That's not even it. That's not even it.
Finish real quick. Listen.
Go ahead.
When all of this shit first started happening with safe spaces and all of these things, these colleges who didn't stand on any sort of principle or any sort of pedestal of what was right and what's wrong were only chasing the almighty dollar that these students were giving them. It was easy for them to say, oh yeah, microaggressions are bad, safe spaces, this and that, right? They're able to do that while they were pulling in the money, and that's when it all started. Well, now it got flipped on its head, and those same kids who were talking about safe spaces and microaggressions and hate speech and all of this stuff are now all of a sudden moving the goalpost and saying that we should be able to say these things about the genocide of Israelites and stuff like that, to where if it was any other group back when these kids first started saying these things, if the colleges themselves at that point said just as simple as, well, it depends on the context, it depends on this, but they didn't, because they had no principles. It was just about collecting $250,000 from each one of these students, to where now those students changed their narrative, and these colleges were stuck holding the bag with these shitty policies they put in place, because they were holding that bag to take the money from these kids. Now they're the ones that are stuck, all fucked up, because of the fact that the shitty policies they put in place chasing the almighty dollar is coming back to bite them in the ass.
I think you got a good chunk of it, but I think you're missing one big part. And that is everything that you just said, coupled with the identitarianism that goes on throughout college campuses. When you have a situation where you have a certain group or a multitude of groups in a cultural hierarchy over another based on the color of their skin or based on their religion, it is always going to come back to bite you in the ass. And that is what this is, because now when we're talking about, like, whether or not you have white privilege or, you're underprivileged based on the color of your skin or your religion, that wasn't that hard for them to parse out, because they could point to history and be like, you see, look at all these bad things that happened to these people of color throughout history. And you could kind of look at that and go, I think that's bullshit, but I can't really prove it, because you have I wouldn't even say a good point, but a point with like a solid structure to stand on. And then the Jews come along.
Right. Well, that kind of goes to what I was saying.
Is what and the Jews coming along, and the Jews, quote unquote, being the bad guys, right, to them in this situation. Now what do you do? Right. But if it was based on straight identity type shit, right? Well, now the Jews are the ones that are the oppressed, not the oppressors. They immediately would have, and according, if it was like strictly based on identitism and identity type shit, the tables would have shifted a lot easier to all of a sudden taking care of these oppressed people. But because there was no principle about the identities and the identity politics involved in what the colleges actually believed in the first place, and it was based on the money grab, that they didn't follow their principles when the different sect of individuals was being prejudiced against. They continued to follow the money, and they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, because they continued to follow the money, but the narrative changed, but they still followed the money. And that's why they couldn't say that saying genocide was bad, because the ones that were giving them the money were the ones that were saying that about different things. But then all of a sudden that group changed their narrative, but the college was scrambling just to follow behind in this lag recognition of just following the money. That's why I was saying if the identity politics was principled, where there are people who are very principled in identity politics, they wouldn't change on that exchange of the narrative. But because they're just following the money, they quickly changed their principles to follow the money. And that's when, like, all the other people who weren't keeping up were like, whoa, hold on, what the fuck? You just said that genocide is based on context? This horrible thing, again, like we've spent enough time on Israel, Gaza.
Because if they were principled based on the identity of politics, they'd have been like, oh yeah, absolutely, this is wrong when it's happening to them, just like it would have been any other sect, creed, religion, race, anything else.
Yeah, well, that's the problem when your system is based on identitarianism in the first place. It's always going to come back to bite you in the ass.
When it's faux identitarianism, that's protecting their bottom line.
And and we've spent enough time on Israel, Gaza. We're not going to talk about it tonight. You can go back and listen to some of our
apparently
previous shows.
Israel is killing people now, just straight up execution style and stuff.
I'm sure we'll get into plenty of that stuff in 2024.
We'll talk about that.
But at the end of the day, right? It's like that is like my first. Okay, this is the beginning of the end of wokeness, because they're their own policies and their own identitarian politics and their own, as you said, Corey, following the money that identitarian politics brings in.
And so let me
the beginning of the end of wokeness.
I'm not disagreeing with you. They're all being exposed because they're using wokeness and identity politics to shroud the idea of a cash grab. Look what happened to Bud Light.
Right. I guess the next thing would be,
I just think I'm looking at it like one layer deeper. It's all about the money that makes the identity politics that everyone is like standing on this pedestal with is tainted in the first place because it's just about the money.
I'm looking at it more from a perspective of like when you base your school policy off of a hierarchy based on race, religion, or creed, at some point it's going to come back to bite you in the ass.
Especially when all that hierarchy is based on money.
Yeah, even if it's the bad white people that are the ones that take the beating for the longest time. At some point, what do you do about it? It's like, what do you do about the Jews?
It's like, oh fuck, we didn't get this far.
Oh, we didn't think about again. We forgot about the Jews again. Anyway, let's see, what was the other one? The other one I had for this being the beginning of the end of wokeness. This is just a really simple one. We don't have to talk about it, but like the inability to cancel J.K. Rowling. You remember the podcast from earlier this year?
J.K. Rowling or Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson or anyone virtually who has actually been canceled.
No, but those were from a while ago. And I'm actually glad you brought up that point because like somebody like Jordan Peterson wasn't big enough to necessarily say, ooh, wow, he might never make it back. But they all keep finding their niches within this. And I'll openly admit it, like this more culturally conservative space, which Jordan Peterson is a cultural conservative anyway, so that's not a huge surprise. And so like and the other thing I was going to bring up with that is like you see all of these people that were, canceled for dirty, horrible things that they said, kind of making comebacks, especially now that you have Alex Jones back on Twitter. What's funny, what's interesting about Alex Jones too within that is like, was he ever like really accused of like being a racist person? Was that ever part of
one? No.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of like feelings about Alex Jones that make me a little queasy, but like him being a racist, I don't think has really ever been one of those things.
Yeah,
has it been a thing
talked
for
a
you?
lot of shit about innocent children being killed and calling them actors, but at least he wasn't racist.
Crisis actors. Yeah. Well,
but at least
that means he should be a champion. So that was
and then
one.
He had Blair White on the show, and he's like, "Oh, you're just a beautiful woman." He wanted to bang Blair White.
And the last thing I had
that wasn't a 2023 prediction for me.
That he was going to have Blair White on his show.
No, that he wanted to bang Blair White.
It can't be proven, but I see what you're saying.
It's pretty clear.
The last thing that I had that I think proves my 2023 prediction of the beginning of end of wokeness coming true is that we see more, I'm going to put air quotes on this, controversial media people going independent and doing very, very well. You have Matt Taibbi with 500,000 subscribers just on Substack. That's just Substack. That doesn't include Twitter. That doesn't include anything else. You have Tucker Carlson leaving Fox News because he was the only guy anywhere in cable media. And believe me, I have my issues with Tucker. If you want to talk about it, folks, we can talk about it. Send us an email. I have my issues with him. However, I think he was the only person in mainstream media that would even ever come close to really pushing that envelope to a degree that it should probably be pushed. And then my last example, of course, is Barry Weiss with 283,000 subscribers on Substack alone. And she so far has been the only person to be able to kind of take the Substack model and like businessify it. She's got multiple writers working for her at this point, or at least her publication, The Free Press, does. And I know I said some mean things about Barry a few weeks back because she made me mad about the Israel stuff. I disagree with her there, but ultimately I still have an absolutely professional and maybe more than professional crush on Barry Weiss. I understand she's a lesbian. It's okay.
You ain't got a shot in the hell.
I got no shot. Nellie's great. Nellie Bowles is great. So I'm happy for the two of them. I'm married too, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so like it's these former mainstream media people or corporate media folks that are taking themselves independent and doing well. And the reason that they're taking themselves independent, for the most part, I guess Tucker would be the exception of the three examples that I gave, but because they were attempted to be canceled because of culture war, woke bullshit. That's what Taibbi was canceled for. That's certainly what Bari Weiss was attempted to be canceled for, to where she left the New York Times and has done a really great job. So I feel like my 2023 prediction came true. We did see the beginning of the end of wokeness in 2023. I nailed it.
So mine are a little bit more skewed. When it came to presidential runs, if you remember, I was sure that DeSantis and Whitmer were both going to be running for president. I was only 50% correct on that one. I got written down inflation stems. We did see inflation start to come down, which is kind of like an easy just swing at the bat for that one.
But it didn't really come down because that would mean a deflation.
It's still up from, but like it's not just rampant like it was a year ago.
Instead of 7 of our dollars being stolen by the devaluation of the dollar this year, it was only 3. You are correct.
Yeah, thank God. Gas prices trending downwards. I called that one, and it looks like it's continued to happen as we're focusing on Venezuela. We talked about that last week. But then I wrote down Ukraine, China, Iran, which I'm not exactly sure what I meant with that. I'm assuming that I thought that Ukraine was going to peter out. I'm hoping that's what I meant because it looks like that's what's happening.
You don't even know what your prediction was.
And then I have China and Iran, and they're still in the news, so I said something about them. But the Iran one, I'm assuming that like we were getting closer to a war with them.
Oh yeah, that you know what, you might have been a year too far ahead on that one, Corey. That might have been the issue. You want to extend that one? You want to extend that one in 2024?
Yeah, I might have been too clairvoyant on that one, huh? Skeletons in social media platforms. That was about like ghost tweets and stuff like that.
Go fuck yourself.
And I was assuming that more of those would be popping up, I'm guessing. Or maybe people would be realizing that skeleton tweets just really don't mean shit because people grow up.
Well, wasn't that before Elon technically bought Twitter?
That might have been, yeah.
Because when did Elon buy Twitter?
Hey, Bell,
when did Elon buy Twitter?
When did Elon buy Twitter?
It was like February of this year, maybe? I don't know. It was this year, wasn't it?
And then the one that I nailed was more COVID-era policies used to spy on citizens.
That was your prediction for 2023?
Yeah.
April 2022.
Oh, okay. So he did already own it. Or but was it not? Maybe it wasn't through yet. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Concluded in October of 2022.
Well, if we
fair enough. So he hadn't really done his like mass takeover yet when you made that prediction. He was about to do that. All right. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and call you 63% right on your prediction for 2023. We'll go ahead and call me 95. I think 95% is fair.
Yeah, I guess.
I only made one big prediction though. Corey, I'm going to take a leak. Go ahead and give Bell.
Oh my God, I was just about to do the same thing.
Go ahead and give Bell and I your prediction for 2024. I'll be listening because I can actually still hear you while I'm doing it. So I'll be able to hear what you say. And then I'll do it and you take a leak.
All right.
I love how we do this show. This is great.
I need to get a shiwi and just piss right here. And then be like, oh guys, don't mind me. It's into a battle. So, hey Bell. I'm gonna bring you in here. So my predictions for 2024 is the continued, not necessarily collapse, but the lack of support for the two-party system that we have in our country. I think that inflation will continue to slide. And then one of my predictions is the culture wars will continue to fizzle, then possibly ignite a bit when the elections heat up. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as 2020 or 2016, since no one is that passionate about the current candidates.
That's fair.
And so those are my predictions, because I feel like 2020, a lot of people are still on that Trump train. 2016, it just seems like it was the first year where just everybody was on social media. So like it seemed like super heated. Everyone was figuring out how to like have conversations about politics because we've always been told not to do it. And then everyone decided to do it all at once. And so it was an absolute shit show and a cesspool.
I'm back.
He's back.
I heard all that.
And then I think 2020 was still pretty heated, but I just feel like 2020 wasn't nearly as heated as the 2016 elections online when it came to the election process. And that I don't think that this year is going to be nearly as bad as either of those, because deep down, no one wants either of them.
Did you hear the update from the CTIL files that the COVID style surveillance stuff basically started in 2016 after Trump and Brexit, because the establishment the establishment had felt like it had completely lost control. Good thing, bad thing? I think it's probably a good thing. All right, Corey, you can go take a leak. I'm going to give you permission to do that. While you do that, God, if I can get my shit together here, I will go ahead and give my predictions for 2024, and then we can discuss them when you come back. He's still here. I don't know why he's still here.
Okay.
Anyway, my first prediction is going to have a little bit of a caveat to it, because there is another thing that's going to have to happen for this to come true. And I don't know if this is going to happen. I can hear myself because Corey left his headphones right next to the microphone. Isn't that fantastic? Anyway,
Oh my!
It's not you, it's Corey. Anyway, I got to just back away from the mic a little bit. My first prediction is that RFK Jr. will pull close to 20% of the national vote in 2024. But the only way that's going to happen is if he's able to get the ballot access. That's the issue. Is he going to be able to get ballot access in all 50 states? If he can do that, I do as well, because I would love to see the chaos of watching this man pull. I'm gonna say he's gonna pull somewhere between 15 and 20% of the national vote, which is huge for an independent.
Who do you think that damages more?
I think overall it probably damages Trump more, but I think you're probably out of your mind if you don't think it damages Biden. I really think he would pull voters from both sides. I think he's going to pull slightly more Trump voters, but not anything crazy. And then I guess the other half of my prediction to that is going to be that RFK Jr. will absolutely be a pariah to whichever side loses that election. I can already see social media and all of the Trump supporters, if Trump happens to lose, go, it's all you RFK people. You made us lose. And same if Biden did it. They're going to want to put fucking RFK voters in prison. Yep. We need to jail all these motherfuckers for voting for the wrong person. It's good. It's almost as bad as voting third party at that point. I guess technically at that point it was. Were you listening while you were taking a leak? Yeah, you were listening while you were taking a leak. How do you feel about my first prediction, Corey?
Oh, that what's his face? Old
RFK Jr.
is going to be the spoiler.
Not just that, I think he's gonna pull between 15 and 20% of the national vote if he gets the ballot access. He has to get the ballot access, though. That's the only question mark that's still left. And then if he does, he is going to be the biggest political pariah from whatever side loses that we have ever seen.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be used as a scapegoat for whatever side loses. Instead of them going, oh, we might have picked a bad candidate.
In a weird way, and I hope this doesn't happen, because I still hope we live in a constitutional republic that uses the democratic process. it almost seems like it would be a way if RFK gives Trump the victory, right? Or is perceived to have given Trump the victory. It almost seems like a way that the establishment would use to try and limit ballot access even further as we go forward, which would be terrifying. It would be awful. We need more, not less. That was actually something that just came to my mind. What do you think about that, Corey? Could you see that being the case?
Yeah.
Like, you see what happens when we let these independents into these races? The wrong guy wins.
Yeah, so the only way I see it's weird, right? Like, if it's like a crazy landslide to where like the one party sees it was clear an advantage to them, there's no way
that's not going to happen. You know that's not going to happen.
Right, but if Trump wins because RFK took more votes from Biden, they're not going to make legislation to help the Democrats in that scenario.
They won't spin it that way, though. They'll spin it that he took more votes from Biden. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
That is the way they'll spin it. Okay,
the Democrats will try to be pushing legislation to make it change. But like, it's weird because like at the top that shit will be happening, but at the bottom we're so fed up that we're pushing things like ranked choice voting through in different states and stuff like that.
Yeah, you mean shit that matters.
Yeah.
This is pretty simple. My next prediction is that Donald Trump is going to win the 2024 presidency. I have no real thing other than
I've already mentally prepared myself for that one, Dan.
Yeah, me too.
That's an easy swing right there.
Yeah, you better start preparing yourself now because it's just looking like it's going to be the case. Unless
I've been preparing myself for that one since like summer.
So, dude, honestly, it sounds fucked up.
I keep asking my liberal friends. I love asking my liberal friends. So, you ready for Trump 2024?
And what do they say? How do they respond to it? That's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen. Hopefully,
he's going to be in prison.
Jail.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so that is like, it's so fucked up because as unfit as I think he is to serve, is as much as I would rather get a fucking double-fisted hand job from a lobster than see another goddamn Trump presidency. In a weird way, you kind of have to root for him because you have this situation where you are legitimately seeing the establishment usurp democracy in an effort to save democracy. And it's almost in a strange way, Trump is almost like a savior of democracy in that way. Didn't think I'd be saying that in 2015, right? You get what I'm saying, don't you?
I'm just picturing double-fisted hand jobs from lobsters.
Yeah, you don't want one. It's probably not good. It's probably not good. Yeah, good. I hate it. I hate that I'm here right now. I hate that I'm here saying that, like, given the circumstances, if I'm rooting for any outcome, it's another Trump presidency. I can't not believe that.
Hand jobs from lobsters.
From lobsters. Yeah. Well, I'll be sure I'll go pick some up from the local seafood joint. I'll bring them over. I'll take the rubber bands off.
No, Dan, you piece of shit. My wife is allergic to shellfish. You can't bring lobsters in my house.
I think, can she not see them? Does that give her a reaction?
She's probably like, oh, whoa, keep those away from me.
You just have to wash your schlong afterwards before she puts her mouth on it. Anyway. Belle looks confused after the double-fisted hand job. Yeah.
Not confused.
So I also
not confused, appalled.
My other predictions are this. Nikki Haley's political career will be over following this Republican primary, and she will probably go to work. She will go to work for Lockheed Martin or Raytheon. Following that, I'm sure she's already got a job lined up. The CTIL files will begin the process of bringing "quote unquote" fence sitters over to the "quote unquote" Great Awakening. I think the CTIL files are going to be a big thing. Like, are you going to get the Hannity, Rachel Maddow watchers on board? No, you're not going to get those people on board.
No,
but the
you'll
people
get the
that
Tucker, you'll get the Matt Taibbi, you'll get the Michael
you'll get those.
Schellenberger, you'll get
You'll
the
get
Aaron
those.
Mate, you'll get the what's his fucking name from The Intercept?
Glenn Greenwald.
Well,
he's formerly of The Intercept, but yeah. But yeah, I think the CTL files are going to be a big deal because the CTIL files have already shown us that certain powers have been planning a sort of censorship. I guess you'd call it a censorship quasi state, essentially since 2016. Essentially since Trump was elected, because Trump was the anti-establishment person. Brexit happened, which is also the anti-establishment decision in the UK, and the people with lots of power didn't like that shit. So here we are. And we're seeing more and more of that come out from Michael Schellenberger doing God's work over there at Public and working with Matt Taibbi at Racket. So that's great. And then my last prediction for 2024 is that this one's going to come to fruition pretty fast. This Epstein list that's supposed to come out early 2024 is going to have
nothing's going to come of it.
Fucking nothing. Absolutely nothing. I think I just threw that one in there to have a sure thing.
Yeah,
because there's going to be nothing on that. Absolutely nothing on. I was actually confident at first when I first read the headline and first read the kind of the first bit of the story that was coming out, and then more and more I look into this, I'm like, no, it's just going to be a bunch of associates, because that's what it says. Associates, maybe some victims listed on there or people we already know about. There's not going to be shit on there. And we're gonna be expected to just take that for what it is, and we're not going to, because I want Prince Andrew to get a hand job from a lobster.
Is that a thing they do at Epstein Island?
I don't know, but that lobster better be under the age of like.
I'm sure
14.
if you paid enough money, you could fuck a lobster on Epstein Island, bro.
But would you want to? If you had enough,
I don't want to.
Money,
some weird guys out there.
That would be a funny segment of which animals. So for when it looks like a dick, it's phallic. When it looks like a vagina, what's that called? There's a word for it.
It's a good
Vagelic?
question.
I don't know.
There's a word for it. But that's a segment right there of how. Oh man, how do you look that up, Bell? Look up what's the female version of phallic.
I'm already on it, dude.
Do it. Look it up. There's a word.
He's all over it.
Because now I gotta know.
Yeah. Because that could be a segment. This object that is.
Sorry.
What is it, Bell?
An object that looks like a vagina. He's having trouble pronouncing it.
There's
Volvic?
Yannick. I gotta Google these words.
All right, we'll worry about this in 2024.
No, it's Yannick.
Yannick.
Y-N-O or Y-O-N-I-C. A Yannick symbol is a sexualized representation of femininity and reproductive power. It's just vagina-shaped things. Or Pindika.
Yeah, Yannick.
It's more of a religious thing, but yeah, Yannick.
But yeah,
Hey,
sometimes
you guys.
you see a Yannick thing in nature, and you're like, "Yeah, I'd fuck that, brother."
How many times?
You look at all those trees that have straight up gashes in them on the disc golf course.
Yeah, but they're also turned sideways.
And then you just lay sideways, or knock that tree down, brother. Give me that Yannick tree.
Oh my God, we have to end this show. We have to end it.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, something like that.
Go fuck yourself.
Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibServativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast. And you can reach out directly at
it doesn't matter. The people that matter heard him. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
be on the lookout for that new year, new me bullshit from Libservative Podcast in 2024.
And for Bell the Body Snatcher on the ones and twos, he as always has been Corey Walsh.
He's been Dan Griffin.
It's been Libservative. Till next time, we are out of here.
Thank you. Thank you.